Welcome, everyone, to episode 443 of Just Joshing. I'm your host, Joshua Pantellaresco. I write stuff and podcasts too, and today, PA Cornell is my guest. PA, she was just a pleasant conversation. It was really nice talking to someone that's just really getting started and getting into her groove as a short fiction writer. She's working her way through the traditional ranks, and she was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Always a pleasant surprise when you meet someone as talented as she is, and is willing to give you the time of day for this. This is a fun little conversation, so thank you very much, PA. And you know what? Let's just get to it. We'll talk about apologies why this was so late later. Okay? Okay.
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
All right. I've turned the recorder on. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's rock and or roll. I'm with Patty. So I always ask this question. If you have anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good. What do you think? You got anything incriminating you'd like to say? If you have anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good.
Okay.
No?
Anything incriminating?
Yeah. We're on the air. We're on the radio. Like we're literally on a podcast. So if we're gonna get to if we're gonna talk about anything fun, it's got to be at least imaginative and creative. And you're a writer. You can come up with stuff. I mean,
We'll see.
we'll see. She pleads the fifth. Everybody likes to plead in the fifth on this one. I don't know why. Anyways, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
And I was saying it's a little echoey in here because we're getting ready for a basement renovation. So my basement's really vacant at the moment, which is why it's a little echoey.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, so
It's called.
a crazy week coming.
Oh, so you're renovating a basement. So you guys moving?
No, we're just adding another bedroom and stuff. So.
Oh, that's cool. So I met you on Twitter. That's right, folks. I actually use Twitter to meet people. It's social media. Who knew, right? But you write stuff. So what do you write?
I do. I mostly write. Right now I'm doing simply. So yeah, I write a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of horror too, but I primarily write science fiction. So.
Okay. So where'd your love for that come from? Does it like Ursula Le Guin and McCaffrey, or were you big into Asimov and Clark? You look like you're around my age, so those people are still would still be what you were a kid reading. So, or did you just stumble into it just with your occupation, like?
I think it was a mix of influences. Honestly, it probably started with movies and television. Like, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and, there was kind of a big boom of science fiction then. I have an older brother, and he would watch a lot of, science fiction on TV or whatever, and I had to too, because he was bigger than me. So luckily I enjoyed it. And I grew up with a lot of that, but I was also a very big reader as well. Like, just my family, I come from a family of readers.
Okay, the connection kind of wonked out. Can you repeat the last part of your answer? I apologize.
Where did I kind of?
When you talk about your books, like what the books you were reading, the two series.
Right, yeah. Okay, so like a little, I guess, early teens or whatever, I started reading more like of the side. Is what I was saying. So yeah, like people like you were saying, like Asimov, or I read quite a bit of Philip K. Dick.
Okay.
Ursula Le Guin, people like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's probably what got me started into reading science fiction.
So for me, it was Ray Bradbury, Martian Chronicles. I know it's not really science fiction, but it kind of is anyway. It's funny. Ray Bradbury.
Oh, yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Ray Bradbury would say that his biggest trick was convincing science fiction writers he wrote science fiction, because he didn't. He just wrote it was in his head, but it was just so good. I mean, I read the Martian Chronicles when I was a kid, and for me, Foundation was the second thing I did. It was the and then after that, it was Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan, and then I went to the Wheel of Time, and then my big love from that era is Roger Zelazny. I discovered him later, but I really love how compact his writing is. Like, Flying Princess and Amber is, to me, a very brilliant book because it has so much in it, and he did in like 200 pages. It was like, you're good. You're really, really good. Because that's what I, like, for me, writing-wise, that's what I'm trying to do with mine. I love the dime novel concept for me. I don't mind big ideas, see Fonda Lee or see, N.K. Jemisin, see like some of the more modern people did, but there's a big part of me that's into that romantic aspect of, the older, they're very compact, they unpack a lot of information, there's a certain the moral dilemmas science can provide sometimes, and they're oddly very appropriate for today's time, unfortunately, right? That's the stuff I love. Like, for you, was it just the concepts, the ideas, or was it like the type of story? Like, what was it for you that made you go, "This is me"?
Well, I think it's just kind of that sense of like a kid and like, oh, this is so just whatever the tech or just the concepts in general. So that probably got my foot in the door. Nowadays, I mean, there's a lot more. I don't want to say there's more thought behind it, but it seems like themes now are very kind of just really talking about like the human experience and things, through genre, where it seems like it's less about like, look at this cool future thing or whatever, which I still think there's a place for everything.
Oh, sure.
It's nice to have a little escapism now and then, and it's nice to also have something that really makes you think. So I think it all kind of works in one way or another. I don't think there's like a right or wrong.
No,
It was definitely like the coolness factor that got me really interested when I was a kid.
Okay, so I gotta ask this then. Since you're a science fiction person, what's your favorite concept in science fiction that actually makes you kind of smile? It still gives you that kid-like feel. Because we all have something.
My favorite concept? I don't know.
What makes you feel like giddy as a kid when you see it? Like, there has to be something. Because I'm still, okay, I'm a comic book guy at heart. I'm a comic book guy, so not every superhero movie, but there's some moments in some superheroes like, okay, that's damn cool, right? And I feel like a kid. Because that's what you want. You want that feeling of, ooh, So how about for you? What is it that gets you that?
I love anything with robots, for one thing, So that kind of gets me. Like, I love the Murderbot series that came out recently. And I don't know. I just love a good robot story. That's kind of like a big thing.
I
mean, there's different things I like. Anything like I like a lot of setting description, things like that, because that interests me. But I know a lot of people hate that too. So.
Well,
just.
I think the best things that like as I've gotten older / wiser. We'll again, the wiser thing. You don't know me very well, so maybe it's too soon for you to judge, and for my friends, some of them may actually know better. But the thing about that is, stories are about conveying feelings. Doesn't matter what your genre is. You're trying to convey an experience or a feeling, and everything in your story, I find, needs to serve that purpose of telling that story, whatever that is. And maybe that's just me, how I structure my work now, whereas when I was younger, I didn't think about that so much. But I realized that really, yeah, you're right. I realized that like the older I get, the wiser I get. The structure of it is far more important than I ever thought, in terms of it serves the purpose of creating that feeling I want to create, right? Because that's what I'm doing. Our readers hallucinate our stuff, right? We create a hallucinogen for people to actually, imagine. So what's important then is, okay, so if it's got a feeling, we keep it. I still remember the stories that made me laugh. I remember the stories that made me cry. I may not remember everything in every little detail, but I know I remember that experience. So I think science fiction as today, as you look at the older stuff, although they are concepts older, I think some of the older concepts still would do very well today. I think it's the fact that you're conveying feelings and experiences a lot more on the page. I think a lot more. I think that's the added dimension of science fiction today. Could be wrong, but that's might be that little wisdom I have.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'd say there is a lot more of that, and we're getting a lot of like diverse voices and things that you didn't so much before.
I think like
interesting.
well, I think like stories in general, like there's in terms of the concept of story, someone comes to town, someone leaves town, something happens. We can't really change. Like they're all we've told all these stories a zillion different times. But what we bring to the table is our own voice and our own unique way of telling it, right? And also whatever story resonates with us, right? Comes to you mentioned something about liking structure a lot. I'm going to ask: do you have a day job, and does it have anything to do with certain structures and semblances and things of that nature?
I don't have a day job anymore. Writing is my day job. When I did have a day job, I was an editor.
Oh, so yeah, you are all about structure. Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty much been related.
Oh, congrats. Oh, I mean that's awesome. I'm trying to do that right now. I mean, I'm still going like. I have to do some temp work for probably the remainder of this year to get caught up, just to restore some of my cash ones a little bit. But when it comes right down to it, it's just like I've been doing freelancing for now for the last 6-7 months. I don't want to go back to working for anybody ever again. So I'm trying to bounce. I'm in that bouncing point. Sometimes you need to go back for a little bit. But then you get what you need, and you get out and you do it. And even while you're doing it, you keep grinding, right? And that's it. I mean, that you've hit there. Awesome. Congratulations.
There's nothing like being your own boss.
Yeah. Oh God. I love it so very much. I just need to be better at it so I can make more money. But discipline's the hard part, I find. I think the one thing that a regular job gave you was the discipline. Somebody else was managing your discipline. Now you have to you have to figure out what works for you in terms of me doing something every day. Right now, and obviously life still gets in the way too sometimes. So it's just like, holy crap! All right, I find time every day to write or draw. I'm trying to do how to draw a comic book. That's kind of my next project. It's going to be. I'm a terrible artist, but I'm not going to let that. Like again, I'm not going to let being bad at something stop me. It's going to happen, right? So,
well, that's how you get better.
Oh, that's it. Well, the two biggest pieces of advice I've ever gotten is we're all bad at some point on everything, but we have to believe we're good. The difference is that belief in being good. And number two, and it's true with everything in life, never let not knowing what you're doing get in the way of you doing it. Because honestly, you don't need that permission. You just need the confidence. It starts and ends honestly with the confidence just to do it. And whatever happens, but by doing it, you open doors. That's what I found anyway. I don't know how it's been like with you, but I imagine it's not that different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what did you edit, if you don't mind my asking? Were you a magazine editor, publisher? What did you?
I was kind of all over. I started briefly at a publisher in Toronto, but that was kind of like an internship kind of thing, so I didn't stay there once the internship ended. I ended up working, I studied journalism.
Okay.
So I went to Canadian House and Home magazine.
Okay.
And I was a copy editor there for several years. And since then, I've done a little bit of freelance, like copy editing, line editing, kind of proofreading, a little bit of that.
So
aside from my writing, of course.
So then for you, then you've had writers where you're like, oh my God, like good writing, you must have a deep respect for it because you've seen it. When it's good, it's really, really good. When it's bad, it hurts just a little bit when you read it. Just I've been on the other.
I'm pretty sure everyone has a garbage draft in the beginning, right? Just better people or people who've been around longer maybe have a cleaner garbage draft, but it's still their garbage draft, and they only improves from there. So.
Oh yeah, like I'm working on my second novel, my 6th book. I changed how I did this. It's actually I'm putting in a lot more work on this novel, but I've already noticed there's a huge improvement. Now I know that this is still my first draft, so there's going to be garbage in it. But what I've noticed is it's a different kind of garbage. So I like it's not like just me going diarrhea on the screen, right? It's more like, okay, where did this come from? Where did that come from? And I realized that for me, like my drafts now are about different stages of fixing. It's about the little details now. And I never thought I'd become that kind of a detail freak. Like when did that happen? But I
It's
imagine...
really interesting to see your craft like change and grow. Like if you go back and read some of your earlier work, or even maybe just something from last year, like you might notice like a
Cringe.
huge difference. Be like, oh, I do this so differently now, or whatever, you know. So, or you can, I guess, taking that time away from it, you can kind of see your own strengths and weaknesses a little bit better too. So it's kind of cool to go back and read your work every once in a while.
Yeah, I still have my very first novel I wrote was in high school. And I still have like that 15-year-old guy writing that. There are points in like that 15-year-old guy. Sometimes I go like, "Oh man, you were sharp. You're like way too sharp." It's like not like we're not talking like a knife, right? A sword that cuts through anything. It's like oh, but every once in a while, it's like okay, that was a brilliant. There's this one scene in particular I really love because I love the emotion it conveyed. And it was like okay, that was good. That was ahead of my time. That was good. You were brilliant here. I can actually look at myself and say, this was good. This is usable. This not so much. I mean, I don't know. How long have you been writing?
Oh, that's a tricky question.
Yes.
Because it depends on what you consider. Because I decided I wanted to be a writer when I was 5 years old, and I guess you could say I started then. But seriously writing, probably not until like high school age. And then probably like mid-20s, I kind of took a hiatus for a while. So I kind of came back to writing in about 2015. So then I kind of had to relearn a lot of stuff because the publishing industry at the time.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. So do you have your own, like, do you publish just for you? Do you publish just for you, or are you represented? Or do you work for any of the big five right now, or are you kind of like somewhere in the middle?
Right now with short fiction, like sorry?
No, basically...
I broke up a little bit.
Okay, so basically what I just asked was, editing's a wonderful thing. Basically what I just asked was like you sound like you might be a bit of a hybrid at this point, which I may be wrong on that assumption. Are you like doing stuff for the big five? Are you doing stuff like traditionally, or are you doing stuff independently, or a bit of both?
Right now, I'm traditionally just with short fiction. I'm just submitting to like established markets and publishing through that. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who do indie publishing. I definitely would never say never to that. So I mean, I don't know. Like it's kind of one of those things. Like I don't have a book out right now. You know, I've done anthologies and things like that, but I don't have my book. But
that sounds like that's coming.
it is something that like I'll think about, like if I want to take the traditional route of that, or if I want to go indie. It really, I mean, it could go either way, and I think it's something I'll decide when the time comes.
It sounds like it's soon. I don't know exactly. Just something the way you said that made me go, geez, if you're not there, you're close. Because it sounds to me like you've proven some stuff to yourself, and you kind of want to see where you go.
I have like works in progress,
Yeah,
for sure, but nothing that's really ready to either send out or publish myself. You know, at this point, but there's some ideas. It will happen at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So.
I'm in the early like pre-writing stages. I think for like several ideas. Some are a little closer than others. So.
So do you fall? So then I guess I'll ask this because you do like short fiction is actually surprisingly it's a very difficult structure, right? I mean, it sounds simple, but it's not because you're trying to convey again same thing, a feeling or a moment inside of like a set number of words. It's an it's an interesting structural challenge, and I have to say it's one of the few areas where I completely suck at. Right, so it's just I've never been able to successfully do it. To my satisfaction, anyway. I've done short stories, but I'm more comfortable on the longer end. So for you, was it just structurally they're simpler for you, or more comfortable at that space, or are you just working yourself to bigger like practice?
I actually started with nonfiction. You know, same with you. Like I think I wrote my first quote unquote novel when I was like 14. It was rich, but I wrote it. It was done. And that's kind of how I saw myself at the time, like in my teens. Like I don't write short fiction. I didn't really read much short fiction then either. It wasn't really my thing. And I just never thought I would. And then after that hiatus I spoke about, I said, you know, I felt like writing one day. Like it was just a really fluky thing, and I was like, let's see, I'll just write this little story. I had a little idea pop into my head and wrote a short story. And I sent it out, and it got published the first time I sent it out, which was again totally fluky.
That's awesome.
So that I guess kind of gave me a little confidence. It's like, okay, maybe I can still do this writing thing, like a little bit at least. And I kind of just tried my hand at more short stories. And at the time, even my short stories tended to be a little on the longer side, like novelette type, like to the longer end of what's traditionally considered a short story. So my goal kind of since then has been writing shorter and shorter, and I've gotten to the point of flash fiction. And like you say, it's really challenging, like to be able to fit a story into so few words. And I think like the shortest I've gotten is about like 750 words or so. I don't know if I can go any shorter than that. Like writing those like draft for like 6-word stories or something. I don't know if I have the skill yet, but it's really been interesting, and it surprised me how much I've enjoyed it. And that's why I've kind of just been doing short stories for a while, because I love the being able to explore like different ideas and different styles and point of view and whatever. Which we're working on like a long-term project. You obviously don't have that kind of like feeling to just kind of change from one week to the next, right? Unless you're working maybe on multiple projects at a time. So yeah. So anyway.
No, because there comes a point where it's just like, okay, I can't do it. The sentence will not go any shorter. It's like 500-word story. It's like, I can't do it. If you can figure out where to cut the words, I'd like to see, because there comes a point it's like I can't see it no more, right? This is a short.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm good at cutting because with my editing experience, I've had a lot of being able to cut things down. It's something I've done a lot for other writers who've been like, I've got this story and I'm happy with it, but it's like, so many thousands of words over. Can you help me chop this? And I'm like, no problem, I can totally do that. But yeah, you do get to a point where I'm like, I don't know
it's like I can't say, especially when you get to the point like when you're conscious about what the story you're trying to tell, and you've told it perfectly. Sometimes you just can't cut it below a certain point. It's like, it won't be that story anymore. It'll be something else. It'll be a hodgepodge. It won't be as good.
Exactly.
It'll be one of those really terrible SEO style articles you've read that will hit the algorithms but tells you nothing. It's like, this fits the requirements, but it's not a story anymore. And that's a very, we all get.
If you're going to write something like that drastically short, you have to plan into that from the start. Like, I don't think you can really cut down like a longer piece. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's.
Kind of have to already have like an idea or concept that fits into a really small size.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. It totally does. Because if you don't, you're going to be like, well, I add this part, and look, a monkey is in the story for some strange reason. I do not know why, but it just came in there, right? And next thing you know, you're way over. Like, okay, I'm lost. Because that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. Like, we get so close to our stories, we tend to, again, the forest from the trees. Like, from a distance, sometimes time away from a story does make things better, but there also comes a point of diminishing returns. I just can't see it anymore. And it's an honest thing, like nobody, we have our own biases no matter how good we are, and there's just some things we cannot see.
Yeah. And sometimes too, you also need, there's still, maybe you're not even ready to write that story yet.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that too, like just, I came back to a story that I started like 10 years ago and now I finally figured it out.
Yeah, I have a novel in my head.
Sometimes that's the kind of time you need.
Yeah, well, it's also just the experience. I want to write about linking like the 1930s to now, because there's a lot of similarities, right, in terms of the inventiveness, the creativity, and we're changing. The whole world is changing, and you can see it. Like, this sped up what was already on its way, right, by a significant shot, and we're gonna be asking questions for the next, at least, regardless when COVID comes to an end. It could come to an end next spring, or come to an end next fall. It could come in 2022. We're going to be feeling this for years to come, and we're going to be making some hard decisions about who we want to be going forward. But also at the same time, we're creating new technologies and new solutions to problems that we didn't even realize we had. And there's this there's these pressures from poverty and upper class, and there's a lot of stuff like that going on now. Yeah, it was happening in the 30s. It was happening in the Renaissance. Like, we're in one of the most inventive times in history, and it seems very quiet, but it's the truth. And I think there's a fascinating story to tell, but I'm not ready to quite tell it because I don't think I have the life experience, and I'm 39. I don't think I have the life experience yet to fully tell that story.
Yeah. Honestly, sometimes I feel that way too.
Yeah.
Maybe we all do, I don't know. But yeah, and you're just like, I'm going to need a little time to let this marinate. And then we'll see if someone else doesn't get to it first.
The one thing I do have the benefit of, you're talking to a guy who's literally in one of his next works has a giant cupcake as a villain, like a giant mama cupcake. So I'm not really worried about anyone quite copying me. I'm not worried about it.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, it's literally it starts off as a job interview. He's interviewing for this mad scientist type job, and something obviously goes wrong with this cupcake, and now it goes on the loose, and it's my little homage to Pac-Man. Right. It's a little homage. So there's literally a scene. I actually have this in my head where my main character's a coward, anyways. He's running from the giant cupcake, and he's going through the maze, much like a classic Pac-Man thing. The only big difference is that the cupcake cheats and it's eating the maze too. But there's nothing like a good Pac-Man homage to have fun with it. So it's like, listen, if you can come up with your own crazy like I can, God bless you. But I personally am not worried about. I might call me arrogant, but I just don't think anyone has quite my imagination. My imagination kind of just sets me apart from everybody else. And that might sound egotistical, but I'll tell you what, I will make the giant cupcake work, and I just will because I can, and it's awesome. And if you want to steal it, go ahead.
It's so much fun to challenge yourself with crazy ideas like that. It's almost like a dare. I dare you to write a story about a giant cupcake or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna make that work.
I wrote a story about a jar of dirt once,
which is great.
I wrote a story about a jar of dirt once. Just I saw the stupid Pirates of the Caribbean thing online. It's like, I can write a story about a giant jar of dirt. I just did it as a personal challenge to myself. Could I make this interesting? Yeah. Kind of. The dirt wasn't so interesting, but the things around the dirt were. So it's like, okay, I kind of did it. Maybe, but I proved it. What I've learned is it doesn't matter what the trappings of your story are. You can throw anything in and you can make it work. It doesn't matter. I could make an army of mashed potatoes coming at people. It would not matter, right? People will buy into it if the context, the tone of the world fits the context of your story. If you can do that, and if you do that, you can make anything goes. It doesn't matter. The first book in that series, I had dragon flu, just as a concept, right? And I remember my first editor, she goes, I completely bought it. Like the way you constructed this world, I bought it. I didn't even need to have an it was there, right? So it was one of those situations where it's just like the context and the tone fit perfectly. The challenge when you have ideas like that is still to convey an emotional feeling that matters, an emotional connection with the reader that matters. Because the more out there you get, the harder it's easy to confuse somebody, but also it's also easy not to have any emotional gravitas. It's like, hey, I got this cool shiny button, but at the end of the day, it's a cool shiny button. It's nice. You press it once, it's cool, but you'll never press it again once you've seen what happens once, right? So it's just one of those. Surprise is a beautiful thing, but without an actual legitimate emotional connection, it will not work or will not stick.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to get carried away by the fun of writing something like that, But you get to a point where you have to stop and think about it. Like, okay, is there some sort of something for the reader to connect to or whatever? At least in the editing stage,
Well, I don't. Again, for me, I love using distraction. I love distracting my reader with crazy. That's me. That's just how I write. It's like, hey, listen.
Like a magician.
Yeah, exactly. Just throw the most outlandish thing. Well, that's what we're doing. Look, if you really sit there and think about it, what we're doing, we are giving the audience what they expect. Our challenge is to do it in a way that they don't see coming. And if it's done really well, it's one of the greatest magic tricks of all time. And my favorite example, one of my personal favorite example of this, I'm going to date myself, The Matrix. The Oracle goes to Neo, goes, now say, He goes, you have the gift, but it looks like you're waiting for something. What? The next life, maybe. Who knows? And at the end of the movie, he dies and he comes back and he's the one. It's like, you bastards. Because they told you exactly. Again, they crafted the expectation in the story without you being aware they did that. And then when it happens, that's a beautiful magic trick if you pull it off, right? We're not again, going back to something I said at the beginning. There is no new story to tell. It's all in how you tell it. So I love surprise. I love distraction because, it's great because it lets you play with your audience's expectations in a way that they want to be played with. Like, you're not cheating them out of anything. It's only when you do something that's completely uncharacteristic to the story or the tone you set, that's when people get pissed off, because it's like, okay, I can't believe this anymore because you've ruined your trust. The reader is trusting us to take them on a great experience. If we cheat them, they'll never come back, right? If we're predictable, right? But if we're too predictable, they'll give us another chance, but it'll be like that, I'm so disappointed thing, right? So it's that tricky balance of, I got to give you what you expect, but I don't have to give it to you the way you want me to. And in fact, I'm not going to. I'm going to give it a way you didn't realize was better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still has to be satisfying.
Oh, God, yeah.
Especially if they're dropping some money on work, then definitely, like, for sure, because nobody wants to be essentially cheated out of their hard-earned money, right? So,
Well, that's what you're paying for, an experience. Like if you're looking at, in one real sense, we're in the right era for writing right now because we are living in the era where people are looking for experiences. That's what people pay for more than anything else. We go out to although right now is a terrible example of this because you can't do that really very easily. We go to a movie theater not because we want to. We can watch that movie at home. That's not what we're paying for. We're paying for that whole ambiance. We're paying for the overpriced popcorn. We're paying for these larger than life drinks that make us go pee at the end of the movie. That we're like there's a giant lineup, right? Or where we take a date where we can make out with, right? So it really doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter. What matters is that experience can't be duplicated. It's why when you look at what they're doing in the movie theaters today, no one's going because it's not that experience. You can't no matter with social distancing, safety measures, create a movie theater experience. It's impossible. It's like going to a concert. Yeah, Zoom is nice. I mean, I love talking to you, but it doesn't beat the actual in-person. It will never beat the in-person conversation, ever. So why would I?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right? We live for experiences. Stories ultimately are about creating an experience for our reader, and our challenge is to make it worth their time to come back.
Yeah, and like you say, like this year, it's like entertainment in general has become so important and especially entertainment that you can get from your own home.
Yeah.
Because so many people just can't leave home, or at least shouldn't be. And, things like writing or TV or whatever is like giving them that little outlet. Giving them that experience that they crave, at least to a point. It's a shame that we can't just go to a movie theater, like you were saying, and have the experience we used to, like, pre-March. But, at least we've got something.
Well, Well, yeah, but I'm just saying that's the thing, right? But even for like content's always going to be in like infinite demand. So you have to think about like that's how like again, this is how I'm approaching storytelling at 39. Maybe at 41 I'll have a epiphany, or at 40 I'll have an epiphany. But I'm like eureka, you know what I mean? You have to kind of have that little you have to recognize what it is you do. And I'm a storyteller, so what I'm doing is I had to create an experience that you kind of are familiar with, like you know what to expect, but give it to you in a way you don't expect it. But give it a twist that you've never imagined. And if you can do that, you're a good storyteller.
Yeah, everybody has to bring like a fresh voice to it. Like that's kind of what our aim is. Like I always think it's kind of heard that story told before or whatever, and it's like, well, of course you have. You know,
yeah.
The same stories have been told since time immemorial.
Yeah.
It's how it's told that's different.
Yeah. Well, everybody's voice is different. Like there will never be another you. Like that's what you bring to the table. That's always awesome, unique, and invaluable. You. Never
Exactly.
again. Nothing ever again. So let's think about this real quick here before we wrap this up, because I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have too. But
Yeah, for sure.
you've done shorts, so you're thinking that you're dabbling with the novel, but you're not sure. It's like, have you not fallen in love with a particular idea to really just go and put that time? Because writing a novel does take a lot of time. But or it's just like, you have these ideas. You're learn, because you're just getting back into writing, or you're doing this and you've been doing this for a while. Or is it about finding a process that works for you?
For the past 5 years or so, I've been really dedicated to it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the way I write, like for longer fiction, is like I'll generally have like an initial concept or what I call an idea nugget, where it's not quite like a fully fleshed idea you can really write a novel from, but it's like something that sparks that initial like, oh, I should write something about this. And then from that, like it's a lot of just kind of thinking about it in a way, like so that's part of my process. So I'll just like come up with like little things like, oh, this could happen, so I'll write this note down, or this might happen here, like change this, or I might add this sort of character in here, and they're going to somehow affect the plot. Piece by piece, I start to come up with something, and then kind of like when I have enough, I guess, like the tipping point of idea gathering, then I'm like, okay, I can actually sit down and write like a shitty first draft. So I guess I'm still in the idea gathering kind of stage for those.
Okay, I have a big question then. We're going to revert, and I think this is a good one to wrap the official interview up. With your work, what are you trying to say? I mean, I asked that under this. I know. So I got 2 books out this year so far. I hopefully get a third. Maybe it'll be early next year for the third. I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. Here's the thing. My first book is called The Cloud Diver, which, by the way, the sequel is one that's going to have the killer cupcake in there. But the first book, when you break it right down, is about coming out of my comfort zone. Getting out of the comfort zone and finding where the magic happens. I have Alice in Wonderland as Greek mythology as the second book. And it's about figuring out solutions, ultimately figuring out the solutions to the problems you create sometimes. The things you fall into, how do you climb out of them? What do you learn? How do you grow? And my next book I'm working on is about, can a bad person become a good person? What does a code of honor, what does honesty and integrity actually mean to somebody? Because that's something that's very important to me personally. All in all, they're pieces of my story. So every story you've written is also a piece of you. So I'm curious, what do you have to say? What are you saying?
Yeah, of course. Like, I like you say, like it's almost like every story is kind of a different thing you have to say. But if I have to pick something I do a lot, I would say that like a lot of my stories just happen to be like about just a lot of relationships between people, often family members. So like relationships between like say parents and children or siblings, things like that. So I try to bring like something about that, like that dynamic into it. And I'm also like, I started out writing like darker stuff. Like in my younger days, I just really gravitated toward like dark stories. And there's just so much darkness now, like in real life, that I feel like I'm kind of gravitating more towards
Okay.
like maybe I don't want to say cold punk, but just kind of more uplifting kind of stories, like just a more like positive view of the future, kind of like in what form that might take. So I'm kind of playing around with that a lot lately, just on paper and in my head, just kind of going from there, like what is this world going to look like, and also incorporating like the family in that, which I find interesting because you see a lot of romantic relationships and things in fiction. I want to do the not-romantic relationships and how that affects people and what they make and how it influences just everything, like.
So I guess what I'll ask, going back to your quote unquote the darker stuff, was that like 5 years ago when you started, or was that even younger? Yeah. I just find
I do a little bit, kind of go like, well, that's pretty dark. Like, do I want to keep it that dark, or do I want to lighten the story up? Sometimes I'll still keep it dark. But...
Yeah, no. The reason I asked that is because I'm one of my favorite writers of all time is Dr. Seuss. He never shied from darkness, but he also, never shied from it when it came up. He confronted it, and there's that. But also, just it's easy to write about darkness and pain. We all understand that. I think humor.
And some themes are dark and just inherent.
Yeah. Some things are generally dark. Oh, you can find humor in the darkest stuff. But that's when you're truly rebellious. You can find humor in the face of the absolute darkness, or you can find a reason to smile. You can get through it. But for me, I think the hardest two things to write are humor, because it's so subjective. My good jokes.
Oh, it's super hard.
Yeah. What I think is funny to me, you might be like, nah, right? And there's a rhythm to comedy. I've described this in a previous episode. There's a rhythm to it, but even so, it's hard to do. But the hardest thing to write is joy, pure joy, because we are always so self-conscious when we're happy. It's very rare to leave that self-consciousness behind.
Also, in writing, it can come off as boring if you don't do it right. Like,
yeah.
Because we're taught, like, there's got to be this conflict that the main character has to overcome, and it's easy to make that like a darkness they have to overcome. Now, if your character is in a happy world overall, we'll say, there's still going to be conflict, but it's a different kind of conflict. It's not quite as black and white, so it's challenging that way too.
Yeah, I think just pure joy is the hard thing. So, maybe have you evolved to the point where you can do pure joy comfortably? Or are you like, yeah, I'm there? Or are you like, I'm still working on it?
I have my moments. Like, I don't know if everyone's happy all the time.
No. No one's happy all the time. I'm a pretty positive dude, and even I have my moments where I'm just I'm a miserable SOB, and that's just the way it is, right? But what it comes down to is, again, that it's easy to be comfortable. I just think that it's hard to share anything, but it's easier to share pain, I think, than it is to truly share joy, because people, I think, honestly, like, genuine happiness and joy are the hardest things for human beings to process, because we don't get those moments in we always have to. There's always a struggle. So in those rare moments when people are genuinely happy, it's hard for some people to process it, I think, because it's like, how did you get that, right? And I do feel there's a little bit of that with it, and I think that's a risk you take when you try to write something like that, because it's not that it's even boring is part of it, but I also think it takes strength to openly be honestly happy. It takes strength to be honestly in pain too. Like, hey, I have a problem. That's a really hard thing to admit, but it's something that I think there's vulnerability on both ends of the spectrum there. I think it's hard. It's really, really hard. I think the hardest thing about it is that openness, and because the moment you open up to it, someone might be able to snatch it from you. There's always a little bit of that fear.
Really? Right. I have that fear, but maybe I'm not even that way.
Yeah. No. It's just.
Pretty happy person already, like.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good, and you should be a very happy person. You're your own
Not
boss.
to say that on days, obviously I do, but I'm be comfortable that way. But I get what you're saying. Like you're admitting pain, or you're opening up your, and there's an element of trust in that.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's the hardest thing. I think to convey true feeling, you have to open yourself up to that vein on some level. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, maybe this is that older, wiser thing. Maybe when I get wiser, I'll figure that out better. But I think that's truly the hardest thing. I think as any kind of art, not just writer, any kind of artist has to do, is being that open.
yeah, I mean, really, you have to look inside yourself. Like it's like you have to be honest on the page. The reader is faking it, you know.
That's right. That's why no one likes advertisers. They're just they fake it all the time. You can tell. So it's just,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. But I think we have a good interview here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I made you chuckle. I made you chuckle a few times. Congratulations on freelancing. I mean, that kudos to you. I'm trying to get there myself. I'm in that back and forth phase of going back, doing some temp stuff here and there. But I'm hoping that by this time next year, I'm not doing any of that anymore, and I'm just dedicated to the cause. So something to aspire to. You're living proof it can be done. So
Yeah, I hope it works out.
yeah, I think it will. I'm letting myself become more and more vulnerable, but we'll see. But before I wrap up, do you have anything coming out? Like, do you have anything coming out anytime soon?
I don't have anything right now.
Okay.
Nothing to plug right now.
Well, how about what just came out then? Do you have anything that just came out?
Yeah, I had a few stories. A couple of them are free to read online still. I had a story in Galaxy's Edge, and I had one in Frozen Wavelets, and the Bronzeville Bee, which no longer exists.
Yeah. That's part of the game too. So how about then? Plug at least one of your most recent stories, how people can find you, and why you rock. Not necessarily in that order.
The easiest thing that anything I've written or anything about me, like it's all through my PA Cornell, and it's got everything there, like my bibliography and just everything what I'm up to. I'll update it frequently.
Okay, so
I've recently had a story in the Chicken Soup for the Soul book too, which is a little bit of a departure for me, but still.
so can you repeat that last part there? Can you repeat that last
I
part?
said I recently had a story that came out in a Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
Oh, congrats!
It's not science fiction.
No, but
there you go. See, that was a story. It's a personal story, so I had to open up about personal truths. So.
yeah. Well, that's good though. Well, hey, listen, you never know.
It's pretty related. It's about how I changed careers because I was a photographer for a while, and I dropped that and went back to school to dedicate myself to writing and editing and stuff.
So, wow. We gotta do another interview at some point down in the future. We can talk about your photography career at some in full detail at some point. But and then maybe at that point you'll be a best-selling novelist and be like, I did it, I'm awesome, and I did all the things. Hey, listen, you might as well shoot big. I mean, hey, we're not in. I mean, can't think small because you've done a lot of impressive things already, and hey, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, all right. On that note, give me a second here. Let me help you tell your story the way you want it told. If you're in the genres of science fiction, fantasy, thriller, historical, or young adult, I have services that can definitely help you. I can produce, narrate, and master said audiobook so it's ready for Amazon and any other software you need. For more information, see my website at jpantelleresco.wordpress.com/audiobook services. You worked hard to create that story, and I'll work just as hard to make sure it's told in the right way. And that is my conversation with PA Cornell. She's awesome. I really enjoyed my chat with her. So, Pat, if you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome to. We had a great little chat. And thank you for not throat punching me for asking about your age. I'm truly thankful that my voice is still intact. You know, even though it's from a distance, if anyone would find a way, it'd be a woman that's like, about your age. So, like, thank you for keeping my voice intact, and hopefully you'll be back on the show when it becomes a talk show. I was waxing nostalgia here the other day. It's like, so this was late, and I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. Alice in Wonderland with my guest reader, Michaela Eaton's this Sunday. And that's really cool. I'm really excited about that. Michaela is awesome. But, yeah, this is the end of an era. So next week is Michael Oden. And I have 2 conversations for episodes 448, 449. And then Alice in Wonderland reading is going to be my 450th and final episode. It's just an audio-only podcast. 450 episodes. And then I take my dream to the next level. I've been watching NYPD Blue for the last little bit just because it's on. But I also really see why people like the show. It's got a really good formula to it. It's got a solid concept, some great characters. Sipowicz in particular is an amazingly complicated one. But all the characters in the show have these great big ups and downs and flaws, and they're all very relatable people, and that's a testament to the acting, but also just the creative team. It's like NYPD Blue is a great example of just like the formula, the characters, and the creative team all being fully enmeshed, and it works. But all this to say, there's this one scene I watched the end of the last season. I got to watch the final season, and it talks about life is long on possibilities. And this has been a very shitty year. I've been very positive. I actually just did this little explanation on there, like why I'm so positive. It's because it's how I accept reality. I don't accept reality as, oh my god, we're doomed. But I also don't think it's all going to be a bunch of lovely little fluffy rainbows either. I have to deal with the shit to be positive. That's just how it is. But even in this, life is long on possibilities. One of my dreams with this show is to take it on the road. I actually have 2 dreams. One of them was create a studio environment where I could get people I really admire to come on the show and talk. And holy shit, am I getting interviews. I am blown away just with the individuals that I'm getting the opportunity to talk to even now in this crazy time. And I'm taking it to another level. So there might be some delays for the next couple weeks. I set everything up, but I'm going to make my dream come true. I'm going to turn my show into a place where amazing people will come on. You can see them, we'll chat, we'll create a whole new dynamic and interaction for it. I'll be playing on some stuff with Twitch. I'm really, truly honored that I get this opportunity. I'm doing some temp work right now. I'm going to be experimenting probably for the next month and a bit. But going back to something I said when the pandemic first happened, like life is short on time, but it's long on possibilities. And very few of us take the opportunity to do it. And there's so many paths you can take, but I want to do it all. I'm taking advice from people I really care about. 2 of them I'm going to mention on the air. One's my sister. The other one's Casey's Red Sky. Someone I care about very much. And they both gave me essentially the same advice. Explore the places you are at now and enjoy your time. Don't deny yourself the kindness to explore everything. And that's what I'm going to do for the next little while. This is one of my dreams, and I want to make it come true more than anything else in the world. I really do, because I'm amazed at the fact that people, for whatever reason, from all walks of life, will come on my show and tell me their life story or be some amazing conversation and I don't know what I did to deserve that, to be perfectly honest with you, but people seem to like it and I seem to be good at it. And I want to do that for the rest of my life, or at least for the foreseeable future anyway. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I have this bigger dream where I go on the road, and instead of having a studio where I go meet these people in these amazing places and go through some great experiences together and tell stories, because that's what we do. And I'm doing that now. Because if there's one thing I've learned about now is that if you don't take chances now, you never will. And anyone out there that's listening to this is wondering, well, is this the right time? Yeah, it's the only time you got. Nothing's changed in one very real sense. Tomorrow you may not wake up at all. In fact, at some point you're not going to wake up at all. And we got all this big giant list of what we want to do with our lives, and most of us never try to tackle that list. I want to, more than anything else in the world. That's why I quit my job. I mean, ironically, where I am right now for temp work is hilarious, but it's why I quit. I don't want to be there. I'm no longer interested in staying in one spot, but that doesn't mean I'm going to take the path I expect either. I might go back to school next year. I could definitely see that possibility, at least taking some classes again, just going out and exploring and doing and seeing and living. At some point, the fear has to be left behind. You have to go on living. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on living. And that's what I'm doing. Anyway, today, when you listen to this, later on tonight, Zingzai, I want to say is the name I got there. Hope I said that right. He's an avid video gamer. We're going to be doing this live on the show. I'm doing these little previews on my YouTube channel, Joshua Penteloresco, right now. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to my Patreon if you want to support with my next endeavor. That'd be awesome and amazing. And, yeah, I'm excited. And like I said, I accept reality. The world has changed. But life is still long on possibilities, ladies and gentlemen. And that'll do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. Subscribe to it on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, Audible. You name it, I'm there. I have backlog on my YouTube right now. There's 382 episodes you can listen to as we speak. On top of that, I have my books, House Zero and the Cloud Diver, that have come out this year, which have been amazing runs. I'm working on my next comic. I have a blog at jpenteloresco.wordpress.com. I have a newsletter you can sign up for. There's lots of ways to support me. So, but however you do it, thank you very much. You know, keep striving, keep going. Life is long on possibilities. Whatever's on your list, just do it. Go for it. Because I know you can. Alright, guys. See you next time.
Josh. Shush.